You're listening to Semi-Pro Gridiron Rant, where we talk semi-pro all the time. All the time. A football podcast dedicated to you, the semi-pro athletes, coaches, team owners, and fans. You're welcome. And now, your host, Ken Anderson.
Well, all right. Welcome back to another edition of Semi-Pro Gridiron Rant. I'm your host, Kenny Anderson. Appreciate you joining us today. Today, we have a pretty cool guest. We have a gentleman that's a referral from Coach Wolf Parker. Y'all remember him. He's been on several of the episodes, plus co-host with me a few times. Wolf's talked very highly of this gentleman, so I'm excited to hear his story. Don't know a whole heck of a lot about him, so we're all going to learn together on this. So without further ado, let's welcome in Coach Fred Reese. Hey, Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Pretty good, thanks. Appreciate you joining me this morning. So let's start. Wolf, like I said, Wolf's told me a little bit about your background, but let's start. Where'd you play college ball?
Samuel State University in Huntsville, Texas.
Okay, awesome. And then what positions did you play?
I played fullback.
You're a fullback. Awesome. All right, I'm a former fullback myself. So tell me a little bit about your college experience.
Okay. I went there to Sam Houston from 1968 to 1972. I held the school's leading rusher position for like 20 years. So
wow.
I did get that. And from that play into Colorado, into Sam Houston, I've also inducted into their Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Cool. So as a fullback, now that's rare in today's world, right? Fullbacks don't really tote the load much, but you're back in the day, like, there are studs like Jim Brown and whatnot. They were listed as Larry Zonka, right? They were listed as fullbacks, but they still got a lot of the carry. So that's cool. So you held it for 20 years. I'm going to assume a tailback beat you, not another fullback, right?
No, it was a fullback. We ran from an I formation. We ran the veer option.
Oh,
and the fullback was very usable in at that position in those kind of formations and that kind of offense.
Okay, awesome. So, you had a obviously spectacular career. You led the school rushing, had the title for 20 years. So when you graduate from college, what's the next step?
The next step is Dallas Cowboys showed some interest in me, and so I went to a few of their camps, and they told me that they were looking to give me a contract, but little bit known to me, they were trying to get Robert Newhouse.
I was just
I
going
don't
to
know
say,
if you remember him.
I'm a huge Cowboys fan, yeah. So I was going to say that sounds like about the Robert Newhouse era.
Yes, and so there was no need for another fullback once they signed him, which they were trying to do, and kept me in sort of a storage like.
Right.
If it didn't go through for them, and it did go through, so they dropped me out of their camp.
Okay. And then once the Cowboys moved on, where'd you go from there?
I played semi-pro in West Dallas. They're called the West Dallas Outlaws.
Okay.
Many years ago. And the following year, I was signed as a free agent to the San Francisco 49ers.
Nice.
Should have been like 1973, 74.
Okay. So you went to the I don't know if they were arch rivals then, but they ended up, at least in the 90s when we had our nice little runs there, they were arch rivals for a while. So you go to the Niners, and how'd that camp go?
There was 9 fullbacks in the camp.
Wow.
Not running backs, fullbacks, 9
right.
9 of them.
Wow.
And I stayed with them until the last cut, and they put me on injured waivers because I did get a shoulder injury while there. So out of the 9, I was a member of the last 3 before they let me go. They let me go, but it's under the injury.
Okay.
And so I was there I was released on injury.
Okay. And then once they waive you for the injury, what's your next stop?
The Houston Oilers at that time.
Okay. Awesome. Back to Texas.
Yes, and I'm from Texas. I'm from Palestine, Texas. You probably heard Adrian Peterson. That's where he's from too.
Yeah, awesome.
So I went to the Houston Oilers, and once again, the ugly face of injuries popped up, and so they had to let me go.
Okay. Well, that tends to be, that's like a lot of people's, well, this guy, that guy. Well, the reality of the NFL is not only are all these dudes gifted, right? But
Yep.
they found a way to stay healthy for the majority of the time. And I tell everybody, there's dudes at the semi-pro level that could play pro. They're either haven't been discovered or an injury held them back, or there's a multitude of reasons that there's a ton of talent at our level on the semi-pro level that just didn't get that break, or we'll say got a break, the wrong kind of break, broke a leg, broke a shoulder, broke a whatever it
Yeah.
may be. So just not getting the right break. So number one, I didn't know you're from Texas. I actually moved to Texas a couple years ago. So I'm just slightly northwest of Fort Worth in a really small town called Springtown. So, that's cool. Wolf didn't tell me you were from Texas. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So unfortunately you're injured. You don't stick to a club, right? So you went to three different camps. I'm assuming that's over a 3-year period.
Yes. The last one was with Houston.
Okay. So then once the Oilers release you due to injury, what happens next for you, coach?
Okay. I kind of got it in my mind that it wasn't there for me to do, so I was going to look a different direction as far as I was going to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a assistant manager of a restaurant there for a while, and then a team from Wisconsin gave me a call. They were semi-pro.
Okay.
They were well known in Wisconsin. So they were called the Manitowoc County Chiefs. So I figured, and they promised that if I came up and joined their team, that they would help me get a job, they would help me get a place to live, and they would pay me $200 a game.
Oh wow!
So little be known, I just decided that was the route I was going to take because I still had football in my blood.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Manitowoc, Wisconsin, where I played with the Chiefs for one season. And after that one season, I moved to Colorado, which is where I'm at now.
Okay.
And became a law enforcement officer, patrol
fantastic.
officer, sergeant of patrol. And I decided, football wasn't meant for me to make my career, although I tried very hard. So I just went into law enforcement, where I was there for 35 years.
Well,
And,
we appreciate your service to your community. That's fantastic. So let me ask you this. So we're talking in like the middle 70s. You get a call from Wisconsin.
yes.
So it's not like it is today, folks, where we're on this internet thing and we can meet anybody with a snap of a finger. So how does it, coach? How is it that you're heard of in Wisconsin all the way down in Texas?
I would assume that the semi-pro in that time and era, they were picking up players that they felt could play semi-pro but didn't make it into the NFL. So I assume that they got my name from a list of players like that because, as you know, like I said, back in those days, semi-pro was kind of next to the pro level.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they recruited and got players from semi-pro. So there was a gate open at that time for semi-pro players.
So you've actually seen, and I'd like to get in this if you don't mind. You've actually seen the maturation of the NFL, right?
Right.
And you've also seen, I don't know if it would be the dematuration, but you've seen how semi-pro has changed from kind of a feeder league, and we still feed Arena and Canadian, and every now and then a player gets called up from a semi-pro team, but it's kind of changed completely, wouldn't you say? I mean, what's the number one? Did you think back in the 70s that the NFL would be the monster that it is today? And number two, did you see semi-pro ball kind of taking the turn that it's at today?
Yes. As you stated, pro football has gone a long way. I mean, at that time, you couldn't get them you couldn't get them every Sunday, Monday, and Thursday.
Right.
There was just mostly Sundays when that you would actually see team on TV. Also, they didn't have all the media that they have nowadays. Okay, the semi-pro, it started to kind of, they started as as a form, trying to be farm teams for the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, when I was in Wisconsin, the Green Bay Packers, they took several players from our team when they had the NFL strike.
Mm-hmm.
They actually took a bunch of players from our team, which was Manitowoc County Chiefs at the time.
Okay.
And it's come a long way. The semi-pro part of it is kind of went the opposite way. Although there are a lot of teams out there, there's also a lot of colleges.
Right.
So at that time, you didn't have the big college drive you have now with college football and so forth and so on. So they had to kind of fend that off, so to speak, with the schools, the colleges.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So actually, you've actually seen not only the maturation of the NFL. So I was born in '72, so I don't really remember. I mean, I remember the early, like Roger Staubach, Ed Tutel Jones, Harvey Martin, that team, like the late '70s. But prior to that, obviously my memory doesn't go that far back. So I can see how it's matured from the late '70s up, but you've seen it, I mean, even earlier than that. So that's awesome. And then, yeah, I even forgot to even talk about college ball. I mean, college ball might have had 50 D1 level schools back then.
Yes,
Now
yes,
it's well over
double.
100 something. Yeah. So,
Yes.
So those players that maybe wouldn't have got a college opportunity before and were playing semi-pro ball to fill in are now getting full rides at these extra 50 plus D1 schools and all the D2 and D3 and JUCOs and everything else that's popped up along the way. So that's kind of cool. You've actually seen the growth of the sport pretty much at every level.
Yes.
Everything. So that's amazing. So once you get to, you said you became a law enforcement officer in Colorado Springs. You decided it comes a day for every player. I've said it 1,000 times. Every player, there's a day you roll out of bed and just say, yeah, I just can't do it anymore. Now, whether it's, life gets in the way and you got to move on and in your case, have a career. Or in my case, I just got old and injuries started piling up and I just couldn't play anymore. It was too much on the body. So when you decide you're going to be an officer, what got you back into, I would assume you didn't play again. You started a coach or started your own team at that time. How'd you get into semi-pro again?
Okay. I started my law enforcement career in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I remember my wife is from Wisconsin, and she always wanted to move back there. So I took another law enforcement job at Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. And at that time, Lakeland College, which is located in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, the coach there was looking for an offensive line coach. And so I worked a shift in law enforcement where I could attend their practices. So I applied for and accepted the offensive line coach position with Lakeland College.
Very cool.
After that, the coach that hired me there was fired, and the president of the college asked me if I would take the job. So I took the job as the head football coach and kind of got out of law enforcement for a period of time.
Okay. And
became the head coach there at Lakeland College. And I was there for 5 years. Once again, things didn't fare out too well at Lakeland after the 5 years, and I was released from them.
Okay.
And I kind of had a family talk with the wife and explained to her what was going on. And we decided to move back to Colorado for law enforcement. And during this period of time when I moved back, my son, it's kind of a long story, but my son was playing Pop Warner, and he wanted me to help him coach, since not help him coach, but coach their team because I'd been a coach with the college and high school and junior high school. So I just told him, my son, that I would do this, but I didn't want to do it because Pop Warner is just totally different brand of football.
For sure.
But they talked me into doing it. And a friend of mine saw that, my coaching skills and my coaching knowledge. And he asked me if I would help him coach a semi-pro team. And I told him, yeah, I had the time to do it. Uh, so I started helping him as a coach and asked them, what is my role as a coach? And they go, oh, you're the head coach. I'm like, I am. so, so that's when I came in contact with the Flames.
Awesome. So let's go back to Lakeland for a minute. So what did, excuse me, what did you feel? I mean, that's a big jump, right? You come out of law enforcement, you're coaching the line, and all of a sudden it's, hey, by the way, you want to be the head coach. So I mean, most guys will go head coach. They might go to receiver coach. They might go to running back, quarterback. Then they're the OC. Then they're the head coach or associate head coach. Then the head coach. I mean, you skipped about 8 steps there and went right from the line to head coach. Now, number one, I could see why, maybe it wasn't as successful as you'd hoped it would have been just because of that's such a huge jump. But how did you feel at the time? Did you feel like you were a little overwhelmed, or because of your football background, you were pretty cool with it? How did that feel?
Oh, to be honest with you, I've always been an organized individual. I always managed to line my ducks up in a row. And at that time, when I was offered the position head coach at Lakeland College, uh, and they've even grown now. The college in the college growth system, it was like a Division III team.
Okay.
Way back as Division III team, you didn't hear about them, you didn't read about them, except for locally and stuff like that. There was no national attention to them,
Okay.
and stuff like that. And so I had my degrees, and I did meet the standards as far as employee with Lakeland College, which is a small Christian liberal arts school.
Okay.
And I kind of made my way up and through that through my ability to recruit, and I recruited enough players that I kind of fit the job because that's what the school wanted. Is the school wanted student athletes.
Okay.
So I stepped into that role, and I managed to do that pretty well. And then, because I did do it so well, the president asked me to be the athletic director.
Oh,
Now
wow.
that's when I got in trouble.
You're in the fast lane right there, man. Boom, 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 boom.
Well, like I said, they wanted student athletes, and being a small school, they wanted to build the programs and stuff like that. And so, because I did such a good job in building the team up, he moved me to athletic director, and I'm not an administrator. I'm a coach, And so that's when I got into the trouble that I got into with the school.
Okay.
But during the period of time there, we did build the program up. I remember when I'd be recruiting students and student athletes, and the coaches would say, "Oh yeah, you're the team with no press box." We didn't have a press box, so I made it my chore to build a press box. So we got everything off the ground and running. I just was assigned too many administrative duties. I was even also the counselor for students in the school.
Wow.
Because of my law enforcement background, they thought I'd be a good police officer at the school too.
So if you ask me, I'm no college aficionado, but I'm going to say it kind of sounds like they failed you. You didn't fail them. I mean, that's a lot of responsibility in a very short period of time. That today, that you just named about 5 different positions: recruiter. There's multi recruiters across. For one team, there's athletic directors, a completely different human being. Counselors, there's more than one, and it's completely different human beings with special studying skills and degrees. Excuse me for that. So they just buried you. Is basically what happened. They just gave you way too much.
Yeah, and administrative type stuff. Yeah, it was overwhelming.
Absolutely, that's overwhelming for anybody. Geez, that's a lot of work. Okay, so unfortunately, you get 5 years, which still 5 years is a long time. And today, heck, half the NFL coaches don't last 5 years. Half, there's college coaches that barely last 5 years. So I mean, that's that part hasn't changed. So you uproot with the wife. Did you have your son at the time? When you were at Lakeland? So
yes.
So you and the family moved.
Yes, I had a son and a daughter in my second marriage.
Oh, okay.
And I had 2 elderly sons. before I married and before I got the job there. As a matter of fact, they played football for me at Lakeland,
Oh, sweet, nice.
and uh, yeah, so they were college students, and they didn't decide that they didn't want to move with us. They wanted to finish their college out at Lakeland,
Okay,
which they did. So my wife and my daughter and my son moved back to Colorado Springs. Like I said, where I got back into law enforcement.
okay, great. So now your buddy comes to you because you were doing well, or he could see that you were a good coach at the Pop Warner level. Which you're right. I've coached Pop Warner a couple years, and it's a completely different animal. It's it's and it relies heavily on numbers and heavily on you if you got a stud, you can run them till the cows come home, and you can. And we unfortunately didn't have that kid, and we were 16 guys, and you need 15 to have a team. So occasionally we wouldn't have enough guys, and Pop Warner's just nuts. So you do some Pop Warner, and then he asked you to help him with his semi-pro team, and his definition of help was, "Congratulations, you're now the head coach."
Correct.
All right. So, what was the name of this team again? I'm sorry.
Team, the Colorado Springs Flames.
So that was the Flames. So way back when, that was the Flames. Okay. So, and that was roughly what year?
98 is when I started with them. However, they started 34 years ago, from 34 years ago. So they've been the longest standing semi-pro team in Colorado, period.
That's awesome. So, just a real quick background. I don't know if Wolf's probably told you, but he coached where I played, which was with Watertown Red and Black, which I'm sure you're aware is the oldest semi-pro team in the country. And there's a couple real old ones, Glens Falls. They're 70 something years old. I had their GM on not too long ago, and so 35 plus years. That's a long time in semi-pro ball because, as you know, a lot of them fade off or split off. And next thing you know, there's 50 teams. And I know Wolf has told me that your team has spawned several wannabe teams throughout the decade. So that being said, it's been around a long time. You come in. What do you remember? What the records were, or how well they were doing prior to you coming aboard?
Yeah, they had won three league championships. That's the Colorado Football League. They had won uh, three. As a
Okay.
matter of fact, the year after the year that before the year they had won the championship before I came on.
Okay. So
So
what would possess someone who, most guys' egos are so big, they're going to be like, "Hey, I just came off a chip. I don't need any help." So what do you think was the reason that he leaned out, knowing that they were already a great team, that you would make them even better? What do you think that came from?
um, uh, uh, I'm assuming you follow semi-pro a lot, and what the semi-pro is doing a lot is they don't get quality people like they used to get them.
For
You
sure.
know, they get, like I said, wannabe team owners and so forth and so on. So two of the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator of the Flames, the last year they won the championship, decided, we can do better than this. We can do better than the Flames. So what they did is they took mostly all the players from the Flames, and
Hmm.
started a new team over called the Generals. Uh, so long story short, they were short of people,
Hmm.
and because they felt good about my playing and coaching career background, uh, I guess they just thought, well, we need somebody like this because we're losing everybody.
Right. Right.
So
Plus, you
that's
were
how I got into
obviously you had said you're a hell of a recruiter at college, right? That's what got you all those promotions. So that was a perfect person to bring in, I would assume, because I would imagine you helped recruit this whole new team, correct?
Yes, yes. We rebuilt it, and nowadays, back in then, it was very easy to get recruiting players and stuff like this. Mind you, we have like 4 uh, military bases here.
Oh, wow.
And so those guys, they go overseas and whatever, and they play semi-pro team in Germany or wherever, and they get sent. Not everybody, but they send them back here, and it's kind of easy to recruit them.
Mm.
Kind of easy to recruit them because they still got football in their blood, and
Hmm.
we're the outlet for them. However, mind you, since I've been the head coach here, with the Flames, there's been 9 other teams that came off of the Flames with players who thought that they could make their own team and so forth. So it's not very easy to keep players
Mm-hmm. So you're
because you got
constantly reloading.
constantly loading because, like I said, there's been at least 9 teams that have tried to reach out on their own and start their own teams, and they fail. And I attribute, the reason why we've been solid is my background in coaching in college and so forth and so on.
Yeah, for sure. So, you would think at some point, at least if I were a player and I'd been in Colorado and I'd seen all these spawns come off and they keep failing, I mean, I'd run to you. I mean, it'd be like we're playing this. These guys been around for eternity. I'm playing for this guy. So I'm sure longevity helps too with a little bit of the recruiting these days. So I have a question for you. So back in the '90s, so I started playing in '93, and I've kind of seen how semi-pro went from that's kind of although it devolved as far as feeding NFL, it's kind of evolved in terms of what it's providing to its players. So in the beginning when I played, it was you bring your own, it was all your own gear. You paid for uniforms, and they weren't very good uniforms, and so on and so forth. So, what have you seen the maturation of semi-pro in Colorado? Has it followed? A lot of these teams they recruit with, oh, we've got 4 different uniforms, and we've got. I mean, what do you find that helps in your recruiting today?
The first thing is being honest with the kid. I call them kids because I'm an old guy.
Right.
Uh, I've called all my players from Pop One up kids. But there's a new strain of kids, that is evolving around semi-pro football. Uh, when I first started semi-pro, back in the '70s when I played with West Dallas Outlaw and stuff like this, here, we had players, and even now, well, we had players at that time that wanted to play the sport. They want to be a part of it.
Hmm.
It wasn't about oh, me. It's me. I'm the top dog here. Me. It's kind of went away from that. Where I can't remember the guy's name that went to the pros as a defensive lineman. He was the last one I remember came from semi-pro.
Eric Swan
That's him. That's exactly him.
for
That's
Arizona
him.
Cardinals.
Yep.
Yep.
And
Big
so
beast.
he was the last one I can remember. But
Hmm.
back then, like I said, you had players who wanted to go to the next level and not talk about going to the next level.
Right.
So I try to be honest with my players and stuff like that. Then your next level, because these are young guys, 21, 22. Some of them, the lowest age we got is 18. You can go to the next level, but the next level is not the pros. The
Right.
next level is college.
Bingo.
So I try to direct them in direction. Hey, you need to go show the films and your information. Because back when I coached college, I would get this feed in information, from various promoters or whatever like this about, a player. And so I'm saying to the guys now, you need to put yourself on the market to go to college. Don't put yourself on the market to play pro football because it's 1 in a million that you're going to have a chance to play pro football unless you're the king of football. You
Right.
know, So that's the first thing I do. I'll be honest with them. I try to advise them. This is a stepping stone, but not to the pros. This is a stepping stone to college.
Hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
so
That's great because we've Wolf and I talked about that too. How we kind of talked about maybe we'll do a side channel and we'll try to help kids get to the next level, whatever that may be. But knowing that it's probably for most dudes, JUCO or
mhm.
D3, where unless you get that one just complete stud that you can push up to D1, but to get on film, especially in today's environment with the like Zoom meetings and Huddle and all that other stuff that they have technology wise, the key is to get on film, and if you're good, someone will find you. Someone somewhere will find you, and it's not going to be it's great to have dreams to be an NFL player, but like you said, it's 1 in a million. So
Yes,
so be realistic and say, well, to get to the NFL, I need to do this first, and this first would be I need to get into a college because there's only 2 players that I know of that have gone from semi-pro straight to the NFL. One is Swan, and the other one from in my area was Ray Seals. He played for he went Tampa Bay for a while, and then he went to the Steelers. And they saw him playing in a semi-pro national championship game in Florida, and Tampa picked him up. So again, that's way back. I think that was probably somewhere in the 90s, because he played with Steelers when they played the Cowboys. So he was in that game. Mm-hmm. So it does happen, but those are two freaks, and they're both defensive linemen, right? So they're just freaks, so big dudes, move fast, run stoppers. Swan, I think, was more of a pass rusher, but just freak athletes. So unless you're that freak, there's two dudes in 20 years that have done it. And there's probably some other little guys, a receiver here and there. You've got the Warner, right? He played arena ball, and then he goes in and he ends up being a Hall of Fame quarterback, right? I mean, just for the Rams. So there are weird things that happen. He was a grocery clerk for a while. So, I mean, there are those strange things that happen, but you got to be a freak. And there are a lot of good athletes, but they have to realize, like you said, it's a step, so, that's great that you don't bullshit them. You just straight up say, this is the way, I'm here to help you get to the next level, but your next level is probably JUCO or 3 or, where we can go from there. So that's fantastic. So you've been there since 98, and I know we talked offline here that you've won 7 titles.
Yes.
The Colorado titles.
Yes.
And you've been to multi championship games. So just about every third year you're winning a ring. Is there one season that you say, like, that was just a special season for one reason or another, whether it was a team you thought we're not going anywhere and they surprised you, or was there a team that you said, this team's going to dominate, and you guys just kind of tortured everybody? Is there a favorite season for you?
Yes, I would say 2011. We went undefeated. We've won championships, but we've never been undefeated during the season. So that's the one we kind of liked the best of, and I think was the best of, because we had some good athletes. We had some good players, and we had some focused players. One of the biggest things that hurt semi-pro is participation. They want to participate, but they don't want to come and practice for that.
Right.
That year I had those guys. Everybody was at practice. I mean, everybody was there. Everybody was learning what was going on and so forth and so on. So I can remember that one, very, very well.
Okay, so that you just had a great group of dudes that all decided they were going to stick together and do it all together and make every practice. And so it's funny. Most of my football's been on the East Coast in New York, and I coached a little bit in Florida too. And it's funny how when I started playing in the 90s, we had a bunch of dudes at practice. We had people all the time, and then you can just as every season goes by, it's less and less people showing up. And then, like you said, we have those athletes today that they want to play on Saturday and they want the cool uniform, but they don't want to earn it through the week,
Exactly.
which is unfortunate, because it is a great sport. And that's part, I think, to me, the reason that has happened is because there are so many spawn teams now.
Right.
That people are just like, I'll give you cool uniforms. I'll let you play. If you make one practice a month, we're cool. Just to learn, just to make the playbook. And that's unfortunate because it's watered down the sport. But it's great that there's still solid teams like yourself in certain markets. The Watertown teams, the Glens Falls teams, your team. There's a couple teams in Florida that have been around for a little while too. So, so I guess it's just the mindset of it's not. I guess it's good to hear that it's not just a Northeast problem or not just an East Coast problem, that it's kind of the maturation of the athlete across the country.
Yeah.
Not that it does either of us any good and makes them show up for more practices, but it's kind of the mindset of the athlete, unfortunately. So let's talk a little bit about, I've heard what COVID's done on the East Coast. I've heard a little bit. I've had a few Houston guests on. Tell me a little bit of how COVID's affected your market, both on and off the field.
Well, the biggest, I would say the biggest thing that it affected is the players, because right now, they're screaming at the bits and scratching at the board and stuff like that to play football.
Mm-hmm.
I never paid attention to, I should say, that for the love of the game, what it inspires you. I mean, right now they're not playing, so I mean they're hungry, and I never thought that uh, football was that much. Football
Mhm.
was that important.
Mhm.
I love the sport and everything, but as far as the spectators and players are concerned, I never knew they would miss it that bad when it was had to be shut down.
Mhm.
We were shut down. The league shut down in March. No, it's in March, April. I think it was April. They finally decided to shut down because of the spread of the virus and stuff. Uh, but my take on it is we lost one good year. Believe it or not, this year I was banking on this to be a comeback year because we had 83 players that
Wow.
had signed and uh, went to the tryouts and all this other stuff. And when the virus come through, we had to disband.
Mhm.
And I don't think I'll. There was a time when I first came in that uh, semi-pro football. There was a time when I first came in that we had to cut players. Well, this year was that time happen again. We were going to have to cut players because, like I said, we had 83 players out there, and a lot of them was from military. That just come back to Fort Carson here and Peterson Air Force Base and so forth, and they still want to play football. Uh, from the local standpoint, we got our group, our numbers, but I think this would have been my best year.
Wow. That's
And
unfortunate.
when we had to shut down, it was no longer football. The guys were foaming at the bits. Coach, we can get this, we can get that. No, it's not the way it works. You're in a league, and you have to understand what their requirements are as a league. So the league says we shut down, we shut down.
Exactly. Exactly. So I guess there's a twofold question here. Number one is, do you think that this will change not just your team, but change the mental, what we just talked about, how players are just basically showing up for cool uniforms and showing out on Saturday? Do you think that pulling the season from them, that some of these dudes are gonna kind of wake up and say, "Well, shit, man, I had football taken away from me. I don't want that to happen again," and they're gonna try to enjoy every practice? Or do you think they'll just say, no, you know,
From
whatever?
their from the attitude I've observed of them, uh, they want to come back. Period. They
Hmm.
want to play. Period. So I would say that uh, come next season, if by the way, we play a spring summer schedule
Okay.
starting in May to August. Uh, I got a feeling that they've seen that it's not given to you where you can just go out there and play and not come to practice. I think they can see, well, I missed this, and so I'm going to take every opportunity, chance I get, to get involved more than just what we were doing. You
Right.
know,
Right. Well, I hadn't even thought of that until just now. That you're right. That could be a complete mind altering stage for the athletes, right? Maybe what comes out of this is everybody kind of readjusts their psyche and say, I had something taken away from me for a year. We've only got so many years to play as athletes. So
right,
there's one that all these athletes across the country lose the season, and they'll never. There's no way to get it back. So I wonder if a side effect's going to be, which would be cool to watch, what these teams become in 21 should 21 allow us to play ball again. And if
right.
21 doesn't allow us to play ball, I think all hell's going to break loose.
Oh yeah,
And
uh,
it's going to be because a lot of these kids, and I call them kids too, and I'm only 48, but a lot of these kids, I've had many a player come to me and thank me for coaching them, or thank me for, I owned a team for a few years, for giving them the opportunity to play. A couple of them have told me they'd be dead if it wasn't for the team. It keeps them out of trouble, keeps them
right,
off the streets, and they know it. And young minds, they try to stay busy, and unfortunately, young minds, they tend to wander towards the wrong side of town most of the time when they're not busy with football. So I hope that, number one, that somebody that would have played doesn't lose that opportunity next year, right? There's always the dude that's was my age. Was late 30s and had COVID hit. I probably would have just said I'm done and not played again. I hope there's not too many of those that don't get their last season and go out on their terms. Because as you know, with sports, it's tough to go out when it's not on your terms. There's always
Right.
a what if. There's always So I hope a lot of these dudes get that opportunity to go out on their terms. So do you foresee? Have they hinted towards what 21 is going to look like? Do they think you're going to be able to have a season, or are the leagues kind of shut down, not even meeting right now?
Well, we just like I said, we have a spring summer schedule, and we don't really meet for the league until October.
Okay.
And because of the virus and stuff like this here, uh, we're having to do Zoom. But in our meetings and stuff like this, we have started the table as far as picking up again and dusting ourselves off and getting back into the scheme of things as a league.
Mm-hmm.
So, right now we have 7 uh, teams in the league, and we're trying to build upon that, get back up to where we were in the 9s and the 10s
Mm-hmm.
players. And I think everybody's learned from this. I mean, how quick things can change, as far as your life in general.
Right.
So I think everybody's kind of hoping and praying that this virus does come under control so that we will have a season next year.
Absolutely. Do you see any? Has there been any hints of any policies or procedures that may be different going forward?
In terms of
In
what?
terms of protecting the athletes and protecting the fans, protecting coaching staffs as far as COVID protocol, if you will. Has there been
Not
discussion?
yeah, not in our league because, like I said, we just shut down.
Okay.
So we're about. However, like I said, these players, I didn't realize they miss the sport as much as they do, but they coaxed me into trying to find games for them and stuff like this here. And we managed to find a game uh, between Minneapolis. Uh, yeah, the team came in from Minneapolis to play us. At that time, we took the measurements. The measurements that we could. We had a thermometer at the practices. We had uh, commitment forms they had to sign because that they would not hold us accountable if they did get the
Right.
disease. Uh, and we checked them out, checked them in every practice. Fortunately, we had no problems with it. But as far as the league is concerned, we have not discussed things like that in the league.
Okay. So did you played that game against the Minnesota team?
Yes, we did.
And how'd that go?
Well, we only had 2 weeks practice, not even 2 weeks, but we practice Tuesday, Thursday, and we play on Saturdays. That's been our schedule. So we had 2 weeks of Tuesday, Thursday, and one Saturday. And they played better than I thought they would, because, like I said, the attendance and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then we shot ourselves in the foot a couple of times. And to make a long story short, they beat us 35-34.
Oh, wow. One-pointers.
Yeah.
Those are the worst.
But, we had a young man decided on the defensive side that he was going to block the punt, and they was punting out of the end zone.
Mm.
And he ran to the punter and gave him new life.
It's always.
But it was
It's
a good
always
game. I mean,
Yeah,
it was a good
sounds it.
game. It was a good game, based on the fact that we did not get enough to ready them
Mm-hmm.
and didn't have enough time to ready them.
Sure. I mean,
But
two
it was
weeks
fun.
is nothing. Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. So listen, if you're a player out there, they always tell you, don't take the game in your own hands. Play within the scheme. There's a perfect example where you play
Right.
outside the scheme, you play outside of what you're coached, and you try to be a hero, and you ended up being the zero, right? You cost this team shot at the win. So
Exactly.
more times than not, it's a mess up. So just play within the scheme. For you young players out there, the coaches are setting you up to win, not to fail. So play in the scheme. So that's great. You at least got a game in. Are there any
Mhm.
more set up? Got anything else set up in the future, like before?
There is, but once again, it's the players, and I try to not accommodate them, but I try to work with them,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll sometimes give me information about this team want to play and that one team, and we got one that's want to play play us November the 21st. I don't think we're going to do it because this thing is peaking and going all up again, and I just don't want to be responsible
Sure.
for some family losing a member because I let them play football.
No, absolutely. Nobody wants that.
But it's respiking. It's we see on the news every day. It's going up. And it's getting more and more positive. And I think the best thought for us is stay off the field as a group.
Makes sense. Absolutely. So let me ask you this question. This is probably a question for you. How many more years you're going to coach? I mean, how many more years you think you're going to do this? You want
Until the good Lord.
Till the good Lord calls you home?
Because the good Lord calls me and tells me you can't do this no more.
Well, that's awesome.
And that's funny. I retired in 2013, and since I retired, my wife is called it the dreaded F's. I'm an avid fisherman, so she called it the dreaded F's, fishing and football. Until I can't do neither one of them anymore, I'll stay with it.
Well, there you go. I'm sure the community's better off for having someone like yourself as dedicated to it. Guys, the thing is as an owner and as a coach, you got to remember. I mean, it is exciting as a coach, and we love the sport too. But I mean, most of us do it for the players, right? It's kind of a selfless it's position to be in. There's really no notoriety to the coaching staff, right? It's all about the players. That's what it's all for.
Right.
So for you to keep coming back year in and year out, and still keep building the program up, it says a lot about you, your character. It says a lot about, your willingness to give back to the community and to the players and to the sport, most importantly, right? So, I'll say I appreciate it. Now, whether your players ever say it to you or not, but, I'll say I appreciate it because I know what it takes to, to be, to coach and to, own teams, and it can be a pain in the keister sometimes. Sometimes you're scratching your head. Why am I doing this again? It seems like it's more aggravation. But ultimately, when you see him on the field, and even if you're losing and you see him on the field, at least you got him on the game, got him on the field, which is important for keep the game going. So Coach, I wish you all the best of luck in the future. I really appreciate you joining us today. It was great hearing your story. I look forward to seeing what you guys do next season, and who knows, maybe we'll reach out and have a little season follow-up at post-COVID after you guys bring home another title. How about that?
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I absolutely appreciate you joining me. You have a great one, all right?
You likewise.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Semi-Pro Gridiron Rant. We hope you enjoyed the show. For more episodes, please check out the website at www.semiprogridironrant.buzzsprout.com. To reach us directly, please email us at semiprogridironrant@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at Semi-Pro Gridiron Rant. Thanks again for listening.